A seasoned airline captain with 20 years of spotless flying record sits across from three stern-faced FAA investigators. His hands shake as they slide a document across the table, his pilot license revocation notice. The lead investigator's words cut through the sterile conference room like a knife. "Captain Mitchell, you racially profiled the son of your own regulator. Your flying career is over." Mitchell's face drains of color as the reality hits him. 2 decades of experience, gone. His livelihood, destroyed. All because of one catastrophic decision he made 30 minutes earlier at Lincoln Regional Airport. But how did a routine day at a small regional airport turn into a career-ending nightmare? How did a simple encounter with a 12-year-old boy lead to federal investigations and national headlines? Let me take you back to where it all began. Lincoln Regional Airport, a modest facility where the hum of propeller engines mingles with the dreams of aviation enthusiasts. It's here that our story truly starts, not with the captain, but with a boy whose love for flight would change everything. 12-year-old Marcus Williams steps off the city bus, clutching a worn leather notebook against his chest like it contains the secrets of the universe. In many ways, it does, at least his universe. This isn't Marcus's first visit to Lincoln Regional. In fact, he's become such a regular fixture that the airport staff have practically adopted him. "Hey Marcus, your usual spot is free," calls out Jenny Rodriguez, the friendly gate agent, as she waves him toward the observation deck. Marcus grins and hurries toward his favorite corner, where floor-to-ceiling windows offer an unobstructed view of the runway. You see, Marcus isn't just any ordinary kid spending his Saturday at the airport. This boy is obsessed with aviation in the purest, most beautiful way imaginable. He opens his notebook, revealing page after page of meticulously drawn aircraft sketches, flight pattern diagrams, and detailed notes about different plane models. Each page tells a story of countless hours spent studying, learning, and dreaming. Marcus pulls out a worn pencil and begins sketching a Cessna 172 that's taxiing for takeoff. His hand moves with surprising precision for a 12-year-old, capturing every detail from the wing struts to the propeller spinner. But this isn't just a hobby for Marcus. It's his passion, his escape, and his connection to the father he rarely sees. His dad works for the government, something important in aviation, Marcus knows, but the details are always vague. "Daddy's helping make flying safer for everyone," is all his mom ever tells him. What Marcus does know is that his father's demanding job keeps him away more often than not, leaving Marcus to nurture his aviation dreams alone. As Marcus settles into his routine, carefully noting the registration numbers and aircraft types in his notebook, he has no idea that his innocent passion is about to collide with someone having the worst day of his career. Enter Captain Derek Mitchell, a 45-year-old veteran pilot whose 20-year career is hanging by a thread. Mitchell strides through the airport terminal, his once proud uniform now feeling like a costume in a play he no longer wants to perform. The stress lines around his eyes tell the story of a man under immense pressure. Just minutes earlier, Mitchell received the call that every airline pilot dreads. His supervisor's voice was clinical, almost robotic. "Derek, we need to talk about potential route cuts. Regional Airways is downsizing, and some routes aren't profitable anymore. We might have to make some difficult decisions." The translation was clear. After 20 years of faithful service, Mitchell might be out of a job. The timing couldn't be worse. His divorce finalization is next month, and his ex-wife is already demanding higher alimony payments. The modest apartment he's renting feels more like a prison cell each night, and his dreams of flying for a major airline have long since evaporated. Mitchell's phone buzzes with yet another text from his ex-wife. "Derek, I need the support payment by Tuesday, or I'm calling my lawyer again." He closes his eyes and takes a deep breath, trying to push down the rising panic. 20 years of flying, thousands of safe flights, and it might all mean nothing if he can't keep this job. But here's where the story takes its tragic turn. In his state of heightened anxiety and paranoia, Mitchell notices something that, under normal circumstances, wouldn't even register on his radar. There's a young black boy sitting alone in the terminal, writing in a notebook and occasionally taking photos of aircraft through the windows. Marcus, completely absorbed in his passion, spots Mitchell's airline uniform, and his eyes light up like a child seeing Santa Claus. This is the moment he's been waiting for. A chance to talk to a real pilot, to ask the 1,000 questions that keep him awake at night. To maybe learn something new about the world he dreams of joining. With his notebook clutched tightly in his hands, Marcus approaches Mitchell with the kind of innocent excitement that only children possess. "Excuse me, sir? Are you a real pilot?" Marcus asks, his voice full of wonder and respect. Mitchell, lost in his own world of financial stress and career anxiety, barely looks up. "Yeah, kid, I'm a pilot. Look, I'm kind of busy right now." But Marcus isn't deterred. This might be his only chance to talk to someone who actually flies planes for a living. "I've been studying aviation for 2 years, Marcus continues, opening his notebook to show Mitchell his detailed sketches. "I've been tracking flight patterns for months, and I noticed that most of the regional jets here follow a specific approach path. And that's when everything changes." Mitchell's stressed mind, already operating on high alert, processes what he's seeing through a lens of paranoia and unconscious bias. A young black boy, alone at an airport, taking notes and photographs of aircraft operations, tracking flight patterns, approaching pilots with detailed questions. In Mitchell's fractured state of mind, Marcus isn't a boy with dreams. He's a potential security threat. "Why is this kid taking pictures and notes about our operations?" Mitchell mutters to himself, his pilot training kicking in with all the wrong conclusions. His mind races with post-9/11 security protocols and the constant warnings about suspicious activity. What happens next will destroy one man's career and traumatize an innocent child who just wanted to talk about airplanes. But before we get to that moment, I have to ask you something. What would you do if you saw a child alone at an airport, taking notes and photos of planes? Would you see a future pilot following his dreams, or would your mind jump to something more sinister? Welcome to Mirror Stories, the channel where storytelling becomes self-discovery. Because what's about to happen next will change both Marcus and Mitchell forever, and the consequences will ripple all the way to the highest levels of aviation authority in America. What happens next is a masterclass in how quickly fear and prejudice can spiral out of control. Mitchell, his judgment clouded by stress and unconscious bias, makes a decision that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He strides purposefully toward the airport security checkpoint, his pilot's uniform giving him immediate credibility with the staff. His voice carries the authority of someone who's spent 2 decades in aviation safety as he approaches the security desk. "I need to report suspicious activity," Mitchell declares to the duty officer. "There's an unaccompanied minor in the terminal, conducting what appears to be surveillance of our operations. He's been taking photographs, making detailed notes about aircraft movements, and asking probing questions about flight procedures." The words hang in the air like a death sentence for Marcus's innocent afternoon. Mitchell isn't just reporting a concern. He's painting a 12-year-old boy as a potential terrorist threat. Security Supervisor Sarah Chen, a 28-year-old single mother who's worked at Lincoln Regional for 5 years, immediately pulls up the security camera footage on her monitor. Her experienced eyes scan the screens, watching Marcus in his usual corner of the observation deck, peacefully sketching in his notebook. Sarah knows Marcus. She's seen him dozens of times, always polite, always respectful, always completely absorbed in his aviation passion. "Captain Mitchell," she says carefully, "that's just Marcus. He's here every week. The kid's harmless. He's obsessed with planes, but in a good way. He wants to be a pilot someday." But Mitchell's paranoia has taken root, and like a poison, it's spreading through his rational thinking. "You can't be too careful these days," he insists, his voice rising with each word. "Since 9/11, we've learned that threats can come from anywhere, from anyone. Age doesn't matter. This kid has been conducting systematic surveillance of our operations." Sarah's gut tells her this is wrong, but Mitchell's pilot credentials and his convincing presentation of concern create doubt in her mind. Still, she tries to de-escalate. "Let me talk to the boy first, Captain. I can handle this through normal security protocols." But here's where Mitchell makes his most catastrophic decision. Impatient and convinced that airport security isn't taking his concerns seriously enough, he bypasses the entire chain of command. Without Sarah's knowledge, he pulls out his personal cell phone and dials 911. "This is Captain Derek Mitchell at Lincoln Regional Airport," he says into the phone, his pilot's authority lending weight to every word. "I need officers dispatched immediately. We have a possible security threat, an unaccompanied minor who appears to be conducting surveillance of airport operations. This could be reconnaissance for a future attack." The words security threat and possible attack at an airport trigger an immediate response. Within minutes, 2 police cruisers are racing toward Lincoln Regional, their emergency lights cutting through the afternoon sky like harbingers of doom. Marcus, completely oblivious to the storm brewing around him, continues sketching a beautiful Beechcraft King Air that's preparing for departure. His pencil moves across the page with practiced ease, capturing the elegant lines of the twin-engine aircraft. In his innocent world, this is just another perfect day at his favorite place on Earth. Then everything changes in an instant. "Son, we need to ask you some questions." Marcus looks up from his notebook to see 2 uniformed police officers approaching him. Their expressions are serious, professional, and completely at odds with the peaceful atmosphere Marcus has been enjoying. His 12-year-old mind struggles to process why police would want to talk to him. Did I do something wrong?" Marcus asks, his voice small and confused. "I'm just waiting for my dad. He's supposed to pick me up later." The older officer, Sergeant Williams, has been on the force for 15 years and has developed an instinct for reading situations. Looking at this polite, well-dressed boy with his aviation notebook, every fiber of his experience screams that this is a mistake. But the call came from an airline pilot reporting suspicious activity, and protocol demands they investigate. "We just need to look at what you've been working on there," the younger officer says, gesturing toward Marcus's notebook. "Can you show us what you've been writing?" Marcus's face lights up, thinking these officers might be interested in aviation too. "Oh, these are my plane drawings. I've been studying different aircraft types and tracking their flight patterns. See, this is a regional jet, and I noticed it always approaches from the northeast because of the prevailing winds ends." But as Marcus enthusiastically opens his notebook to share his passion, the officers see something entirely different. Pages and pages of detailed aircraft sketches, airport layout diagrams, notes about flight schedules and patterns, everything that, through the lens of post-9/11 paranoia, could look like surveillance materials. "Son, I'm going to need to take this notebook as evidence," Sergeant Williams says gently, trying to maintain some compassion in an increasingly uncomfortable situation. The word evidence hits Marcus like a physical blow. Evidence of what? What has he done wrong? His notebook, his most precious possession, containing months of careful work and dreams, is being taken away like contraband. "But those are my drawings," Marcus protests, his voice beginning to crack. "I didn't do anything bad. I just like airplanes." And that's when the tears start. Not the angry tears of defiance, but the heartbroken tears of a child who doesn't understand why his innocent passion has suddenly made him a target. The notebook disappears into an evidence bag, and with it, a piece of Marcus's soul. The situation escalates beyond Marcus's worst nightmares. Other passengers in the terminal begin to notice the commotion. Smartphones come out, recording the scene of a black child being questioned by police at an airport. The video clips will later go viral, but right now, they're just adding to Marcus's humiliation and terror. "Where are your parents?" the younger officer asks, his training taking over. "Who dropped you off here today?" "I took the bus," Marcus sobs. "My dad's at work. He's supposed to pick me up at 5. I come here every Saturday. Jenny knows me. Ask Jenny." But the officers don't know Jenny, and they've been told this boy represents a potential security threat. Following protocol, they make the decision to detain Marcus until they can sort everything out. The walk to the airport security office feels like a death march for Marcus. Every step takes him further from his dreams and deeper into a nightmare he can't understand. Passengers stare, some with sympathy, others with suspicion, and all of them with their cameras ready to capture the moment. In the security office, Marcus is placed in a small, windowless room with plastic chairs and fluorescent lighting that makes everything look sickly and wrong. He asks repeatedly to call his father, his voice getting more desperate with each request. "Please, I just want to call my dad. He'll explain everything. He'll tell you I'm not bad. Meanwhile, Captain Mitchell watches from a distance, telling himself and anyone who will listen that he's done the right thing. I protected everyone in this airport today. He tells his colleague, Captain Rodriguez, you can't be too careful with security these days. That kid was clearly conducting surveillance. But not everyone is buying Mitchell's narrative. The airport staff who actually know Marcus are becoming increasingly uncomfortable with what they're witnessing. Jenny Rodriguez, the gate agent who's greeted Marcus every Saturday for months, approaches the security office. This doesn't feel right, she tells anyone who will listen. Marcus comes here every week. He's a sweet kid who just loves planes. His dream is to be a pilot someday. There's no way he's a threat to anyone. Other staff members begin sharing their own positive experiences with Marcus. The maintenance crew mentions how he always waves to them and asks intelligent questions about aircraft systems. The cleaning lady talks about how Marcus always picks up his own trash and says, please and thank you. But these testimonials fall on deaf ears. The wheels of protocol are already in motion, and a 12-year-old boy's dreams are being crushed under their weight. Finally, after what feels like hours but has only been 30 minutes, Marcus is allowed to make his phone call. His hands shake as he dials the number he knows by heart, praying his father will answer. The phone rings once, twice. Then, mercifully, a familiar voice comes on the line. Dad? Marcus's voice breaks completely. Dad, I'm scared. I'm at the airport, and the police think I did something bad. They took my notebook. They said I was suspicious. Dad, I don't understand what I did wrong. On the other end of the line, in a federal building in Washington, D.C., FAA Administrator David Williams feels his blood run cold as he listens to his son's terrified voice. His 12-year-old boy, his brilliant, aviation-obsessed, completely innocent son, is being treated like a criminal. And that's when David Williams, one of the most powerful people in American aviation, decides to remind everyone exactly who they're dealing with. I want to ask you, have you ever made a snap judgment about someone based on limited information, only to realize later how wrong you were? Think about a time when your first impression was completely off base. Share your story in the comments. Sometimes admitting our mistakes is the first step toward doing better. What happens next is going to absolutely blow your mind. And you won't want to miss a single detail of how this father's response changes everything. Because when the most powerful aviation regulator in America discovers his son has been racially profiled and humiliated, the consequences are about to be swift, severe, and absolutely devastating for Captain Mitchell. While Marcus sits terrified in that sterile security office, his phone call is about to trigger a chain of events that will shake the aviation industry to its core. Because the man on the other end of that line isn't just any concerned father. He's David Williams, Administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration, the most powerful aviation regulator in the United States of America. The FAA headquarters in Washington, D.C., a massive federal building where the decisions that govern all American airspace are made every single day. In a high-security conference room on the 7th floor, Administrator David Williams is in the middle of an emergency meeting about new airline safety regulations when his personal phone buzzes. For a moment, David considers letting it go to voicemail. He's discussing multi-million-dollar policy changes that affect every airline in America. But something about the urgency of the call makes him glance at the screen. It's Marcus. David's son never calls during work hours. Marcus knows his father's schedule, respects his important job, and would only interrupt an emergency meeting if something was seriously wrong. Gentlemen, excuse me for just one moment, David says to the room full of airline executives and federal officials. I need to take this call. But the moment David hears his son's voice, broken, terrified, sobbing, everything else in that room becomes irrelevant. His 12-year-old boy, his pride and joy, the kid who dreams of following in his father's footsteps in aviation, is crying like his world is falling apart. Dad, I'm scared. I'm at the airport. And the police think I did something bad. The words hit David like a physical blow. His son, detained by police at an airport? The same airports that David regulates, the same industry that David has dedicated his life to making safer and more inclusive? Marcus, slow down. Tell me exactly what happened. Which airport are you at? Through Marcus's tears and stammered explanations, David pieces together the horrifying truth. His son, a 12-year-old boy whose only crime was loving aviation, has been racially profiled, detained, and humiliated by the very people who are supposed to protect travelers. David's voice becomes laser-focused, the tone of a man who's used to commanding respect from the most powerful people in aviation. Marcus, listen to me carefully. You did nothing wrong. Do you understand me? Nothing. I'm going to fix this right now. He turns to his security detail. Because yes, the FAA Administrator travels with federal protection. We're going to Lincoln Regional Airport, now. Emergency priority. But that's not all. While his convoy is being prepared, David makes a series of phone calls that will send shockwaves through Lincoln Regional Airport's management structure. This is Administrator Williams. You have detained my son at your facility. Yes, you heard that correctly. My son. I want every person involved in this decision in your office when I arrive. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The panic in the airport manager's voice is audible even through the phone. Administrator Williams? Sir, we had no idea. This is about the boy in security? That boy is Marcus Williams. He's 12 years old. He loves aviation, and you've just made the biggest mistake of your professional careers. Meanwhile, back at Lincoln Regional, Marcus sits in that security office, still crying, still confused, still not understanding why his innocent passion has made him a target. The officers guarding him are beginning to look uncomfortable. The boy's story isn't adding up to any kind of threat, and his obvious distress is making everyone involved question what they're doing. Then, exactly 20 minutes after David's phone call, something unprecedented happens at Lincoln Regional Airport. A convoy of black SUVs with federal license plates pulls up to the terminal. Not one vehicle, not two, but 4 vehicles filled with FAA officials, federal security personnel, and the kind of people who don't usually show up at small regional airports unless something very serious is happening. From the lead vehicle steps David Williams, 6 feet tall, impeccably dressed in a federal government suit, carrying himself with the quiet authority of someone who doesn't need to raise his voice to command a room. Behind him emerge officials wearing badges that read Federal Aviation Administration and Department of Transportation. The airport manager, assistant manager, and head of security scramble to meet this unexpected federal delegation. They have no idea what's happening, but they know that when the FAA Administrator shows up unannounced at your airport, your career is probably about to change dramatically. Administrator Williams, the airport manager, stammers, "We had no idea you were coming. If we had known." David's voice cuts through the noise like a blade. "Where is my son?" The words hang in the air like a death sentence. The airport manager's face goes white as the pieces fall into place. The boy in security, the one who was reported as suspicious, the 12-year-old who's been crying for his father, that's the FAA Administrator's son. The walk to the security office becomes a procession of panic. Airport staff whisper frantically into radios. The police officers who detained Marcus suddenly realize they might have just arrested the son of one of the most powerful people in American aviation. When David enters that security office and sees his son, his brilliant, aviation-obsessed, completely innocent son, sitting in a plastic chair with tear-stained cheeks, something fundamental shifts in his demeanor. This isn't just a federal administrator anymore. This is a father whose child has been traumatized. "Marcus," David says softly, kneeling down to his son's level. "I'm here now. Everything's going to be okay." The reunion is heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. Marcus throws his arms around his father like he's drowning, and David is a life preserver. "Dad, they took my notebook. They said I was suspicious. I don't understand what I did wrong." David holds his son close, but over Marcus's shoulder, his eyes are scanning the room, taking note of every face, every person who participated in this travesty. When he speaks again, his voice carries the weight of federal authority. "I want everyone who is involved in detaining my son in this room right now. Airport management, security personnel, the police officers who responded, and especially the person who made the initial complaint." And that's when Captain Derek Mitchell walks into what will become the most devastating moment of his professional life. Mitchell enters the room still convinced he's the hero of this story. He's prepared to explain his actions, to justify his suspicions, to defend his decision to call the police on a 12-year-old boy. But when he sees the federal officials, when he notices the FAA badges, when he realizes the magnitude of what's happening, his confidence begins to crumble. "Are you the pilot who reported my son as suspicious?" David asks, his voice deceptively calm. Mitchell straightens up, trying to maintain his authority. "Yes, sir. I observed suspicious behavior and followed proper security protocols. I was just being cautious." David's response is measured, controlled, but absolutely devastating. "Captain Mitchell, let me explain something to you. You saw a black child interested in aviation, and your first instinct was to assume he was dangerous. You didn't see a future pilot. You didn't see a boy living his dreams. You saw a threat." The security footage is pulled up on screens around the room. Everyone watches as Marcus sits peacefully in his corner, sketching planes, bothering absolutely no one, displaying nothing but innocent enthusiasm for aviation. "This is what you reported as surveillance activity," David continues, his voice getting harder with each word. "A 12-year-old boy drawing pictures of airplanes. A child who knows more about aviation than most of your passengers. A boy whose dream is to become a pilot, just like you." Mitchell, realizing his career is hanging by a thread, tries to defend himself. "Sir, in today's security environment, we can't be too careful. I was following protocols. I was protecting the airport." And that's when David Williams delivers the blow that will end Mitchell's career forever. "No, Captain Mitchell, you weren't being cautious. You were being racist, and you just racially profiled the wrong family." The room falls into stunned silence. Airport staff who know Marcus begin speaking up, confirming what David already knows. His son is a regular visitor, beloved by the staff, completely harmless and passionate about aviation. Jenny Rodriguez steps forward, her voice shaking with emotion. "Mr. Williams, Marcus comes here every Saturday. He's the sweetest kid. He always says please and thank you. He picks up his trash. He asks thoughtful questions about planes. Everyone here loves him." The police officers, realizing the magnitude of their mistake, begin offering apologies. But David isn't interested in apologies. He's interested in accountability. "My son will remember this day for the rest of his life," David says, his controlled rage filling the room. "He'll remember that his love for aviation made him a target. He'll remember being treated like a criminal for pursuing his dreams. And I'll remember every single person who participated in traumatizing my child." Can you imagine being in Captain Mitchell's shoes right now? Finding out that your snap judgment, your decision to racially profile a child, has just been witnessed by the most powerful person in aviation? Think about the worst professional mistake you've ever made, and multiply that by 1,000. Share in the comments, have you ever had a moment when you realized you were completely wrong about someone? David Williams isn't just angry, he's the FAA Administrator. And he's about to show everyone what happens when you mess with the wrong family. What happens next is a masterclass in how swiftly justice can move when the right person decides to wield their power. David Williams doesn't wait for meetings, doesn't schedule follow-up calls, doesn't promise to look into it later. He acts immediately, and his actions will reshape multiple lives before the sun sets on this devastating day. Right there in that security office, with his son still in his arms and Mitchell standing frozen in horror, David pulls out his phone and makes the call that will end a 20-year aviation career in less than 60 seconds. "This is Administrator Williams. I need you to contact Regional Airways immediately and inform them that Captain Derek Mitchell, employee number." David pauses, looking directly at Mitchell's uniform. "What's your employee number, Captain?" Mitchell, his voice barely a whisper, provides the information that will seal his professional fate. David continues with clinical precision. "Captain Mitchell is under immediate FAA investigation for demonstrating profoundly poor judgment and engaging in racially motivated harassment of passengers. His pilot's license is suspended effective immediately, pending a full review." The words hit Mitchell like physical blows. 20 years of flying, thousands of safe flights, an unblemished safety record, all of it evaporating in real time. But David Williams isn't finished. "Furthermore, I'm ordering an immediate investigation into Captain Mitchell's judgment fitness to hold a commercial pilot's license. The man who racially profiled a 12-year-old child shows exactly the kind of impaired decision-making that makes him unsuitable to be responsible for passenger safety. While David is making these calls, something extraordinary is happening on social media. The passengers who witnessed Marcus's detention and humiliation have been posting their videos and photos online. But instead of the usual internet mob mentality, something beautiful emerges. A wave of support for Marcus that will restore a little boy's faith in humanity. Jenny Rodriguez posts on her Facebook, "This is Marcus, the sweetest 12-year-old who comes to our airport every Saturday to watch planes. Today he was detained by police because a pilot thought his love of aviation was suspicious. This beautiful boy dreams of becoming a pilot. Let's show him that his dreams matter." The post goes viral within hours. Pilots from major airlines share it. Aviation enthusiasts from around the world comment with encouragement. Aircraft mechanics post photos with messages like, "Future pilot Marcus, we're rooting for you." Flight attendants share stories of their own aviation dreams. But the most powerful posts come from the airport staff themselves. The maintenance crew shares a video. "This is Marcus asking us about hydraulic systems last month. Does this look like a security threat to you?" The cleaning staff posts, "Marcus always helps us pick up trash and says thank you. He's the most polite kid we know." Meanwhile, Mitchell's phone starts ringing. It's Regional Airways, and the conversation lasts exactly 90 seconds. "Captain Mitchell, you are suspended pending investigation, effective immediately. Report to management tomorrow morning to surrender your company property. Your actions today have potentially exposed this airline to federal sanctions and a massive lawsuit." 20 years of career progression. From flight instructor to regional airline pilot, from small planes to commercial aircraft, from rookie to captain. All of it unraveling in less time than it takes to taxi for takeoff. But here's what makes this story truly remarkable. While Mitchell's career is imploding, Marcus's future is being rebuilt in real time. David Williams, still holding his son, turns to the airport staff who defended Marcus throughout this ordeal. "I want to personally thank every one of you who spoke up for my son today. You showed more courage and integrity in 30 minutes than some people show in a lifetime. Marcus, these are the kind of people you want to be like when you grow up." David then does something that surprises everyone in the room. He kneels down to Marcus's level and says, "Son, I know today was scary and confusing, but I want you to understand something important. Your love of aviation isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. And I'm going to make sure you get every opportunity to pursue your dreams." 3 months later, the full consequences of that day at Lincoln Regional Airport have rippled through the aviation industry in ways no one could have predicted. Captain Derek Mitchell's pilot license isn't just suspended. It's permanently revoked. The FAA investigation found that his decision to racially profile Marcus demonstrated fundamentally impaired judgment incompatible with the responsibilities of commercial aviation. Regional Airways settled a federal discrimination lawsuit for an undisclosed sum and implemented mandatory unconscious bias training for all employees. But the real transformation happened to Marcus. David Williams didn't just defend his son. He opened doors that most kids could only dream of. Marcus became the youngest participant in the FAA's Youth Aviation Program, a prestigious initiative that provides mentorship and training to future pilots. At aviation conferences across the country, David Williams tells Marcus's story as a cautionary tale about unconscious bias in the industry. "My son's experience shows us that prejudice doesn't just hurt individuals. It threatens the very diversity that makes aviation stronger. When we judge people by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character, we don't just harm them, we rob ourselves of their potential contributions." And then comes the moment that makes everything worthwhile. 6 months after that horrible day at Lincoln Regional, Marcus takes his first discovery flight with Captain Sarah Martinez, a Latina pilot who became his mentor through the FAA program. As their small Cessna lifts off from the runway, Marcus looks down at Lincoln Regional Airport. The place where his dreams were almost destroyed, but ultimately where his future was secured. The boy who was once treated as a threat is now soaring through the clouds, one step closer to his dream of becoming a pilot. Captain Martinez, who has heard Marcus's story, turns to him as they level off at 3,000 feet. "Marcus, do you see those clouds ahead of us?" "Yes, ma'am." "That's your future, son. There's nothing between you and the sky except your own determination. Don't let anyone tell you that you don't belong up here." As their plane disappears into the afternoon sky, the lesson of Marcus Williams becomes crystal clear. Sometimes the people we judge hold our futures in their hands. Sometimes the child we dismiss as suspicious grows up to regulate our entire industry. Sometimes the family we underestimate has the power to change our lives forever. Captain Mitchell learned this lesson too late. His prejudice didn't just cost him his career, it cost him his future, his reputation, and his place in the aviation community he had served for 20 years. But Marcus learned something even more valuable: that justice exists, that good people will stand up for what's right, and that dreams are stronger than prejudice. Here's my question for you. Have you ever witnessed someone being treated unfairly and wished you had spoken up? Think about Jenny Rodriguez and the airport staff who defended Marcus when it mattered most. What would you have done in their shoes? Let me know in the comments. Your answer might inspire someone else to find their courage. Welcome to Mirror Stories, the channel where storytelling becomes self-discovery. Never let prejudice cloud your judgment, because you never know who you're dealing with. The 12-year-old boy you dismissed today might just be the pilot flying your plane tomorrow. The family you underestimate might hold more power than you ever imagined. And the dreams you try to crush might be stronger than the hate that drives you to crush them. In the end, Marcus Williams didn't just survive that terrible day at Lincoln Regional Airport. He soared above it,